So Russian floor, Russian gameplay, this is significantly different. The thing is, the emphasis and forms of the masculine and feminine principles among Russians are structured quite differently. But primarily, it's evident that Russians are more feminine. It's no coincidence that Russian philosophy, as soon as it began with Solovyov, first and foremost, started to problematize the name. Specifically, the feminine principle in teachings, about the feminine aspect in the divinity of Holy Sophia. Solovyova and those who followed in the entire Silver Age, Russian philosophy is obsessed with the feminine principle, trying to express this friendship. Another gender, a model by its own means, sometimes successfully, sometimes not, sometimes reaching heresy, sometimes remaining within the bounds of cultural intuitions, as with Dostoevsky. In Tolstoy's work, notice the male characters and Tolstoy himself. Tolstoy and Dostoevsky, all the positive characters are feminine, they are attentive. They don't break things. Instead, they try, like Prince Mishkin, to heal the world's fractures within themselves. And they're not afraid to look ridiculous. It's a completely different style. Dostoevsky spoke a lot about this. So, this is feminine from my point of view. This is not just a common style, femininity, feminism of Russians, including Russian men. It's also a response, a reaction to this nomadic, ultra-masculine, super-masculine style of Western people. Essentially, we turn our feminine side towards them. It's only because they overemphasize the masculine. So what's our gender type? The archetype is the most complete. So I believe that it's neither feminine nor feminist. It's just a defensive reaction. In reality, an archetype of oneself exists for us. And Rosanov, in this regard, who spoke about the family, and the main eros is not the eros of men and not the eros of women. This is the erosion of the family as a whole, integral beginning. And the Russian gender, it is actually secondary to the family. The family comes first. And then the husband, wife, man and woman. This leads to a non-partnership of two. And the unity of something whole, holism, what in Greek is called thus androgyny. And speaking of Russian gender, I think Russian gender is an androgynous family gender. It's architecture, A-type, balanced, integrated, where there is all gradients of male and all gradients of female. In a very dialectical, complex interaction, the androgynous type of family went to create, firstly. And to this, the church leads us as well. Two bodies united, it torments us. And our traditional culture of settled peasant homesteads, which constituted the majority of the population. Over the millennium, the peasantry was overwhelming. But the class until the 1930s, the 20th century, most Russian people were peasants. And this has left its mark on all layers, up to the highest, especially such pure variants. During the Soviet period, we lost and mainly remained descendants of peasants. Thus, the specificity of the Russian gender or Russian sex would perhaps explained, especially unlike the Eastern and Western type, by its androgynous family meaning, androgynous family, orientation in androgynous with family architecture. That is, for us, essentially, we do not know what a woman and a man are in themselves. We know them in the family. We know what a husband and wife are. And what is a wife apart? That's Baba Yaga, a solitary woman living with the forest with apparent issues. In a family sense, she has daughters named Egish at the same time, but not always. A husband thus demonizing pure femininity and also demonizing pure masculinity, like the bride-stealing Kashchay or the snake. Kurinych. This is a negative character in Russian folklore. Russian subject, Russian society is a mix of genders. It's the masculine and feminine principle combined in a family, without excess in ultra-male, ultra-rational character, manifested in Western society or into such a wild, lonely, forest, delirious, feminist extreme in the image of Baba Yaga. For Russian gender, it's a thing to study separately, specifically, very carefully, and also pay attention to these ethnic processes that occurred in the formation of our family when we were between the field. And with forests, Russians are people of rivers, much like the ancient Slavic Russians, situated between this Turanian wisdom. By Foskilin conquerors and abductors of our women, and with the Finno-Ugric local population, which certainly has far more feminine victims. With feminine qualities, we were in between, by culture, and that has influenced the structure of the Russian family and the distribution of gender roles.